Inklings, I'm Bianca and welcome back to Binks Thinks. So this is the third monthly update in my Project TBR Zero challenge where I try to read all of the physical books I own. I started this challenge off with 350 unread books, and at the start of this month I had 340. So I'm going to give you an update on how month 3 went. Let's get into it. So first of all, as a disclaimer, March was my birthday month, so the whole part of this doesn't really count. I'm just gonna, I did get a lot of books in March and that kind of overflowed into April, but that's fine because it was my birthday and Christmas months. I'm just going to kind of ignore. I've seen someone else give themselves the same, like 2 months or so, where the whole rule doesn't count. So because of that, I didn't really keep good track of when the books arrived and things like that. So I'm just going to get the haul out of the way first and just talk about all of the books that I got. And then we're going to see if I can recover from that. So the first 3 books I got are all by Paul E. Hardesty. The first one is The Descent, which is the prequel to The Forcing. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year. And I ordered this because it's not coming out in Australia for quite some time. I was also very grateful and lucky enough to be able to interview Paul at the launch of The Forcing in Perth, so that was a really amazing experience. And then I had to obviously order The Descent as soon as possible. Then while we were at the book launch, they were kind enough to gift me the 2 books in his Straker series, which I don't own yet. So that is The Reconciliation of the Dead and Absolution. I do own the other 2. The first one is The Abrupt Physics of Dying and The Evolution of Fear. I've only read the first one in that series, and I've read the first one in this series, and I've also read Paul's standalone Turbulent Wake. So very excited to read these 3 and the other one that I haven't read yet. So yeah, very lucky and grateful for these. But that does bring my number up to 343. Then I got the 50th anniversary edition of Carrie by Stephen King because, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I read On Writing this year, absolutely fell in love with it, bought a physical copy of that, and then I decided to buy his first book as well, which he did talk about in that. I'm quite curious to learn about his fiction writing style. I really enjoyed the non-fiction style. So yeah, that's why I got this one. Then I got the Crimson Moth. This one I've heard so many good things about. Some of my favorite creators online have read and loved this, so I ended up getting myself a physical copy as well. Then, in an attempt to read some more historical fiction, I got 3 of Kristen Hanna's books because they were in a really good deal, 3-book bundle. So I got The Nightingale, Firefly Lane, and The Great Alone. I've heard amazing things about her books, and I have been wanting to read The Nightingale for absolute ages, so when the deal popped up, I just had to get them. Then similarly for Garden Spells, this has been on my radar for ages, so I decided to get that and the sequel at the same time. I think this is a magical realism series, and I've heard so many great things about Sarah Addison Allen as well. So yeah, that was just a little birthday treat. Then these last 3 are the first books in series, but I did end up getting the full series, which is something I did realize in March that I need to stop doing. I need to, first read the first book and then decide if I want to keep or buy the other books in the series. So the first one of those is The Bear and the Nightingale, which is a trilogy. So that brings that up to 13. And look, I've gone over what I started with. So yeah, I did buy these 3. I'm really excited to read these in winter. This is another series that people have had on my radar for absolute years. I think this will be very much my taste, so I'm very excited to read these. And then I got this Navigating the Stars Sentinels of the Galaxy trilogy by Maria V. Snyder. I have read and loved lots of her other books before, and I'm trying to read more science fiction. I've really been enjoying watching Star Trek recently, so I've bought some of the science fiction books that I loved when I was younger, and then I also got a few that, you know, I want to try read as an adult. I just find it so cozy, and I've been listening to some on audiobooks as well. So then I got the Reckless series, which is 4 books by Cornelia Funk. This series is by the same author who wrote the Ink World series, which I will talk about as well a bit later in the video, but I have been rereading that series and I want to read more of her books just because I think she's an amazing author. So I decided to get this series as well. It looks really interesting. You can see on the back what all 4 look like. So there we are. Those are the books I bought in March. And now let's get into books that I read. I do also want to mention I did unhaul 4 books, which I don't even remember which ones those were. So let's just put that in there for now. And then let's talk about the books that I actually read. So the first book that I finished was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. It's the first book in the series and it was for a book club. I don't own the physical copy and I'm kind of glad that I didn't buy it because I didn't really enjoy the book. Then I finished Inkheart, which is the first book in the Ink World series by Cornelia Funk, which I mentioned earlier. I am absolutely loving my reread of those books. I also loved watching the movie. I do own the books, but because it's a reread, that does not count towards the challenge. And then I also discovered a short story by Cassandra Clare. It's called After the Bridge, and it's kind of like the epilogue in the Infernal Devices trilogy. So I found that online and I read it as well. Then we finally get to a physical book, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I absolutely love this book, especially the last half of it. It was quite slow getting into this. I think I started it at the beginning of the year, but I only finished it in March. But the last half of the book I finished in like 24 hours. So yeah, this should count for like 2 books because it's massive. But yeah, 5 stars. Love the found family. Highly recommend. Then I also finished Hazel Bly and the Deep Blue Sea, which I don't own a physical copy of. That is a middle grade book and I've been trying to read all of Ashley Herring Blake's books. I think I only own one of her books and that's one that I haven't read yet. But anyway, her middle grade books have been so much fun to read. They are my friend Leia's favorite middle grade books. So that was the last one I had to read. Then I also read Damsel. I listened to the audiobook of Damsel by Ilana K. Arnold, and I did end up watching the movie, which is an interesting story because 2 different people wrote both things. They were both given the same concept and they created totally different stories, so that was really interesting and I did enjoy the book quite a lot. I also finished Ratus à la Ferme, which I don't own a copy of. That is one of the French books that I'm reading. And then I finished another massive book, Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings. This is also like over 500 pages, so this did take me a while to get through, but I do own the whole Magnolia Parks series, so this was a lot of fun for me to read. I enjoyed it so much. And I'm very excited to finish the series this year, which is one of my goals. Then I read a small book for a change, Galatia by Madeline Miller. This is a tiny little short story, but we do own this one. And yeah, it was not my favorite of her books so far. I still need to read Cersei though, as a disclaimer, but this was a nice little break from some of the thicker books that I was reading. Then I also decided to read these puzzle books that I've had for a while. I used to have this one when I was small, but I have misplaced it since then, or it was given away, and I bought 5 other puzzle books like this. They're on the shelf. I'm not going to pick them all up because they're quite heavy. But yes, so they are by Shirley Barber. There are 5 of them, and I did read all of them in March, so that was great. It was so nostalgic. They're not very long. They're children's books, really, so they are a story with a page of like a puzzle. This one has a piece missing, but it's like a whole board puzzle book, which I think is just beautiful. And I had so much fun reading all of them. And then the last book I read in March was Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal. This is a non-fiction book, and I've been following Ali's videos for years on YouTube. I think he's so inspiring, and I really loved his book so much. And yeah, this was a great read. I think he spent a lot of time doing his research, and it's not a typical self-help book, I don't think, and I quite like how he approached it as well, making it more psychological and finding enjoyment in things, and that's what I've been trying to do this year as well. So thank you for this. I really loved it. And that is it for March. I did set myself back quite a lot with all of this, admittedly, but overall I had a really great birthday month. There were some stressful times which did account for some of the additional book purchasing that happened, but yeah, I did learn a lot, and I'm quite pleased with my progress in terms of finishing 2 really big books that have been on my TBR for a long time, and I did end up reading more in April, so stay tuned for that video, and thank you so much for watching. If you are doing a similar challenge, please let me know down below. I'm looking for more people to follow to keep motivated on this journey. If you want to be notified, remember to hit the bell icon and keep reading, Inklings. I'll see you next time. Bye.